Bastion. It's an indie game that suffers severely from indie-itis. Indie-itis is the disease received by any game that raises its creativity and decreases its depth. Thankfully, Bastion weighs much heavier on the creative side. The game looks brilliant and sports a sort of oil-painted style, but instead of looking like a pretentious 20-year-old's Tumblr page, it looks like a well-crafted storybook. I honestly haven't seen this much life and color in a game since I last played a Nintendo game. Now, if I'm even more honest with myself, that was only 5 minutes ago, but the point remains that Bastion is flooded with charm in its design. It just so happens that the same charm and quality bleeds into the music. It's got this cool thing going on where it is both edgy and laid back. Lots of cool string instruments and clever percussion, mixed with great techno, deliver a unique and enjoyable musical soundtrack. Most importantly, the music makes me feel cool, and I guess it's the feeling of the whole game. Coolness. The game lets you play in whatever style you see fit, and the style that I saw fit was gunslinging, barrel rolling, and adventuring. And I don't know about you, but that about sums up my definition of cool. As I mentioned, the gameplay really is tailored to what you want. There are enough weapons and special skills to allow every player to have a different experience. On top of that, each weapon, of which you can only carry 2 at a time, has several levels of bonuses, only obtainable via upgrade material and money. Once you've purchased the upgrade material, you have one of 2 choices to make. And each bonus level of weapon power has 2 drastically different choices. For example, without bonuses, the shotgun can only reach about 2 inches in front of your barrel. At the first bonus level, you can either choose to increase your firing range or shrink its range and give it a wider spread. It's this type of dichotomy on which the gameplay is built. You are constantly sacrificing one convenience for another, and it's those conveniences that shape the way you play. I'm sorry if I'm spending a lot of time on the gameplay, but it was my favorite part of the game. That is, until I got to the end of the story. The story in Bastion is brilliantly told through the voice of a super hunk of a narrator who comes across as a mix of Ron Perlman and a smooth jazz singer. I say the story is told, but it's really narrated like a play-by-play commentary. Every action you make or every step you take results in some type of quip or compliment. Thankfully, it's nothing like a football game, screaming about the quality of what you are doing, but instead, more of a story that takes small detours from talking about how great the main character is, to the treachery of the train, or the tragedy of the calamity. Speaking of the Calamity, man wasn't that transition smooth as butter, the Calamity is a horrible, awful event that destroyed the world, or at least broke it up into tiny little bits. You are the kid, or just kid, either or, and you are one of the survivors along with Rusk, the narrator slash owner of his own hunk of land called the Bastion. What sets the Bastion apart from other hunks of crumbling rock is that magical crystals can be added to it to deck it out with cool shops and upgrade centers. Sadly, the storytelling is done in such a way that you never really know whether or not what you are doing is just to deck out the Bastion, or if it has any real significance. Suffice to say, the story is well delivered, albeit very late game heavy. If I were to be totally honest with you, I would have to say that I have got a proper fantasy RPG itch, and this game just didn't scratch it. Not only was it steampunk and not fantasy, it really doesn't have that much depth in RPG. You have stats, yeah, though I can't really think of any other than health at the moment. You don't really have enough time to test them. The game only lasts about 10 hours, and isn't particularly challenging. That is, of course, as long as you don't touch any of the idols. Bastion has an interesting difficulty setting that gets changed by insulting the gods, who will in turn make your life suck. The cool part is that these Sais deities change the difficulty in creative ways. Instead of just saying hard, harder, your worst nightmare, it does things like give the enemies more health, more attack, or the martyrdom bonus from Modern Warfare 2. There are plenty more, but to be honest, I was way too much of a wuss to try them all. Now I know what you're thinking. This game is perfect, and only 15 bucks? I spent all that on Wawa this morning. True, this game is good and cheap, but it's not without its problems. Every level has at least one area where walking is its own hazard. Though combat is really cool and flows well, walking seems genuinely choppy with only 8 directions to go in. To top that off, there are only 4 buttons used for moving on my keyboard, which also means that I have to press 2 buttons to move at a 45-degree angle. Sad to say, I fell off the level nearly 100 times. It's not too bad because it only takes off a bit of your health, but it really breaks the flow of the game. It wouldn't be that big of a problem if I had more control over the kid, but with only 4 buttons it makes it kinda hard. Bastion also does this annoying thing where it gives you a new weapon every level and forces you to use it on that level. They do this several times by designing the game around clearing an area a certain way or defeating certain enemies that are much easier to beat with your new weapon. That would be all well and good if I wasn't already embedded in my own playstyle, and if I didn't only have 2 weapon slots. It also comes as a bit of an annoyance that those obstacles are only present for the one stage that the new weapon is introduced in, meaning that all those items you get late game won't really be integrated into your playstyle and pretty much become useless. These are all very nitpicky complaints, which is a good thing because that means the core parts of the game are all well done. But it's also true that these annoying things really do add up. Complaints included, Bastion is still an excellent game and is well worth your time. It's not the RPG I wanted, but it feels like a tight experience that captures your attention in a fun and beautiful world.
Best thing we can do for those beasts right now is put them down quick and clean. There's only one kind of mercy left these days.